Today, I want to talk to you about the power of deliberate distraction. So it sounds interesting, right? While I was on vacation, I was thinking about a lot of different things. And one of the things I realized was when we talk about distraction, we talk about all the bad things, right? We talk about how this is distracting us from what we need to do, and this is distracting us from what we need to do. But distraction is not always a bad thing. And if we use deliberate distraction, it can actually help us in a lot of different ways. So let's say you're stressed about something. Something is not going the way you want. You have a situation that's weighing heavy on you, any of those things. Anybody ever had that? Yeah, like everybody, right? Some of you right now, you're like, I want to be further ahead. I want to be this. I want to get to my goal. I want my life to change. I want to move. All these different things, right? So, what happens though is when we're focusing on the problem, we know that our brain becomes threat oriented. Now, this is super important because what happens is our amygdala starts scanning for danger. The brain starts asking questions. What's wrong? How do I fix this? Why isn't this working? What if this never changes? And this is the biggest one that gets us into the most trouble. What if this never changes? And the problem is the questions in themselves are not bad. The longer we stay there in the problem, the more our brain finds evidence that reinforces the emotion that you're already feeling. Now, this is actually called mood congruent processing. Mood congruent processing. If you're discouraged, and you've probably seen this, think about this for yourself. Your brain remembers every previous disappointment. If you're angry, your brain recalls every injustice. If you're worried, your brain predicts every possible failure. And what happens is your attention actually gets trapped in this area. Now, when you think about this, anybody who's ever been married, had a relationship, that person does something wrong, and all of a sudden you can remember everything they've done wrong for the past year, 5, 10, 50 years ago. You can remember what they did wrong. And that's how the brain works. And what we have to understand is neurologically, our attention feeds emotion. We know this. And whatever neural network you're firing in your brain repeatedly, it becomes stronger and stronger. It's kind of like lifting weights. And this is one of the biggest principles behind neuroplasticity. It's not just long-term repetition, even in the short term, repeatedly activating the same emotional circuit keeps it online. So this is where deliberate distraction becomes really powerful. Because people will say things to you like, well, you just got to think positive. You got to think this, and you just want to, come on, you just want to stop telling me and think positive. And thinking positive in itself many times can backfire because when we make too much of an emotional leap, we can't do it right. Well, I just need to be happy, but you're completely disappointed. That's a hard jump to make, right? But there's steps in between that we can go, and this is where deliberate distraction comes in. Instead of forcing ourselves to think positive, we simply change what the brain is processing. It's almost like giving your computer a different program to work on instead. Now, these can actually be very simple. You pet your cat, you play with your dog, you walk outside, you sit by the creek, you put on something that makes you laugh. Everybody says TV is a bad thing, but if you've got a backup show that you turn that thing on and you laugh every single time, It can actually be a powerful distraction when you are not happy. Mind Sheldon, The Big Bang Theory. Holy goodness, I love Sheldon cracks me up. I don't care how many times I see that. It makes me laugh. So if I really need to laugh and I'm not in a good place, that could be one of my tools. Okay, I'm going to put on Sheldon. I'm going to watch 20 minutes of Sheldon, and then I'll be in a better place to go do something else. Organization for some people. Some people, cleaning does this. Going and working on the closet that you've been meaning to tear apart. They don't solve the original problem. And what we have to understand is we're not trying to solve the problem, but they solve something equally as important, and that's changing your brain state. Because what happens then is your nervous system begins regulating again. Research shows that pleasant sensory experiences increase activity in the parasympathetic nervous system. This is important because then your heart rate will slow down. The stress hormones begin decreasing. Remember those stress hormones? They help you get all that belly fat. So if losing weight's important to you, staying away from stress should also be equally important to you. Your breathing relaxes and your body starts signaling we're safe. And here's the fascinating thing. The body often changes before the mind does. We tend to think I'll relax once I solve the problem. The nervous system actually works in the opposite direction. I'll solve the problem better if I'm relaxed. And we know the prefrontal cortex comes back online. And this is where you make your best decisions. This is where you make your decisions. When our prefrontal cortex goes offline and our amygdala is triggered, all we can see is the problem. This is why we say the problem and the solution are not in the same place. Where are you going to make the best decisions? Where are you going to get the idea that may fix this problem, or at least get you further steps ahead from where you are in the problem? When your brain is working at its optimal level, right? This is why this power of deliberate distraction works so well. Because what we end up doing is distracting ourselves away from the problem. And here's the thing, we've been told most of our lives, you can't ignore your problems. You can't ignore this. You got to face this. You've got to do this. And here's the thing, sometimes that's actually the wrong move. When you find yourself that you cannot fix the problem in the moment, it's become too overwhelming. You don't know what the answer is. It's causing stress. Any of those things, that's the time to walk away. And that's the time to use the power of deliberate distraction to get you away from there, to get you focused on something else. Now, one of the things that we have to understand with this is that when we do that, you pet your cat, you sit on the porch, you take a walk, you go on vacation, suddenly you get this, I know what I should do. That idea comes, that answer comes in the place that's not in the same place as the problem. And we think the solution magically appeared, like, oh my gosh, here it is. But actually, what happened was the brain simply became capable of seeing it again. This is actually called cognitive flexibility, something that we haven't talked about here yet. And one of the biggest casualties of stress is flexibility. When we are upset, we become mentally rigid. There are no options. This never works. I'm stuck. I always fail. Once we get the nervous system calmed down, the brain starts making the new connections again. Researchers associate positive emotions with broader attention and greater cognitive flexibility. This is huge for entrepreneurs. because we can always be focused on what's not working instead of focused on what is working. And we can actually limit our ability to see the path to go on to make our business successful. Positive emotional states literally widen the range of thoughts and actions our mind considers. So, if you've ever been on a freeway and you're on a 2-lane freeway in Texas, okay, a lot of 2-lane freeways in Texas, right? And I was surprised that they weren't bigger. It's like 2 lanes, that's all you've got. And there's not a lot of exits in between. When we are in a stress state, it's like that freeway in Texas. It's 2 lanes, you're stuck, and you're hoping for an exit to get out. When you actually get yourself back in that place of peace and you have good cognitive flexibility, it's like when you come into a city and you have 5 freeways that open up in the directions that you could go. That's literally what it's like for your brain. Your brain suddenly sees this option that you never considered over here. Your brain starts seeing possibility of, oh, maybe this person can help me. What we have to understand is the longer that we stay in the stressful state, the more we hamper that cognitive flexibility. And we can actually, even permanently, what's seemingly permanent, everything can change, but what's seemingly permanent, we can make it so we never see these things over here. What a sad life to never be able to understand the possibilities that you have because we've focused on the negative for so long, we've blocked those areas. And we don't even understand that we're the ones doing it. So, how do we do this? How do we practice this? There's a couple of different things we do because the more you can increase your cognitive flexibility, the more possibility for your business that you have, the more a possibility that you have for your life, and the happier you will be. So, how do we do this? First, we know first thing in the morning, mindset, mindset, mindset. Listening to those things that are bringing you, that are putting you on that high flying disc. Meditation. And meditation isn't the same as visualization. Please understand, they are completely different things. Meditation could be focusing on a scripture and just quietly focusing on that scripture. It could be quieting your mind altogether so you can train your mind how to be quiet. There's a lot of different ways and a lot of different practices of meditation. But what it does is it gives you the greatest ability first thing in the morning to catch those emotional states before they start going down the same road, before you start thinking all the same things that you did yesterday. When we do this and we set our mind up to be in a place of peace, then we use the power of deliberate focus and start focusing on the things that we want to focus on. See, the power of deliberate focus is activating our brain, our reticular activation system, to go in a direction that we want to go. But if we have failed, which is okay, things happen. Something happens, you get that phone call, you get that email, you look at your back office, you look at your bank account, whatever. And it's like, okay, that's the time to use the power of deliberate distraction. So the process for it is this. Something upsets you, something frustrates you, something makes you mad. The first thing you ask is, do I have the answer for this right now? That is the first thing we have to ask ourselves. Do I have the answer for this right now? And write down as many answers as you can, because there's a magic in writing. If nothing comes to you or only one answer comes to you that you can't do right now, that's the time to click into gear, shift the direction, and use the power of deliberate distraction to get your nervous system regulated back to that place of peace. Because we can never solve a problem to the fullest extent in the best way when we are not in peace. As long as we are stressed, mad, angry, frustrated, there will be options that we could have seen that won't be seen because we have literally shut those pathways off. So, what do we do today? First, we're going to do visualization, of course. This is going to help get you into a good place. What if you're already in that bad place, though? What if you came here cranky? What if you came here worried about that thing you've been worried about? We all do it. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. Now's the time that we use the power of deliberate distraction. Visualization shouldn't be about the problem or anything related to it. It should only be something that makes you happy. When you get off this call, what's the next thing you do? What is something that will bring you joy, make you laugh, make you feel better? And many times in that state, we don't want to feel better. We don't. We're just like, I feel this. I'm going to feel this because this hurts. And I know, and I've got to solve this problem. But what we have to understand is the solution is never in that place. It's like going to Africa for avocados. There's a reason African food doesn't feature a lot of avocados because the avocados are in California, right? And other places. And I know that's a silly example, but we have to understand that if the solution is over here, we have to get ourselves to a place where we can see that solution over here. And the faster we do it, the faster we get out of the situation that we're in, or we start seeing possibility, or we start getting steps to go in a direction that will help us. The longer we stay in the problem, the longer we stay in that stress state, that cognitive flexibility is not there. And you're only going to see the things related to this. And the answer is never there. So if we can use this logic and shift our attention, even write it down and say, you know what? Okay, God, this is my problem. I can't fix it. I'm giving this to you right now. I have to get my brain reset. I have to get this focused. Just doing that action right there and starting to do that can open up your cognitive flexibility again and allow you to be able to move in a place that will help you resolve the situation. Try it today. Let me know how it works for you.